You've traveled almost 90,000 light years.
A wanted predator from the other side threatens the space station.
Show me where the weapons are stored.
Is he a dangerous criminal or a pawn in a brutal game?
I live the greatest adventure one could ever desire.
Now the crew finds themselves battling the unknown.
He's running from something, that's for sure.
The hunt is on the next exciting episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
There's a bigger issue here. Just because a group of people belong to the Federation, it does not mean that they are saints. The trouble is Earth. On Earth, there is no poverty, no crime, no war. You look out the window of Starfleet headquarters and you see paradise. Well, it's easy to be a saint in paradise. Out there, all the problems haven't been solved yet. Out there are no saints, just people. Angry, scared, determined people who are going to do whatever it takes to survive.
What I want to know is, out of all the stories you told me, which ones were true and which ones weren't?
My dear doctor, they're all true.
Even the lies.
Especially the lies.
On behalf of the Bajoran government
And the Promenade Merchants Association,
I officially welcome you to Deep Space Nine.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to Especially the Lies of Deep Space Nine podcast, a part of the Front Row Network and NPR Illinois Community Voices. We are a group of newbies watching Deep Space Nine for the very first time, and a group of people who have visited the Prophets many times and are watching alongside them. And I want to thank all of you first and foremost, because last week we topped at 34, number 34 for the top TV review podcasts in the United States. Number one in Finland, but 34 in the United States. So thanks for listening and sharing. Keep doing that. And also a thank you to our Patreon members. We have opened up our Patreon. The link is down below. And we already have some founders or producers that are listed. So thank you to our producers who are giving the highest donation every single month. That really will help us buy beer and hopefully some more stuff too. But really beer and lasagna. Yes. I did pay Blake back for the lasagna. So
and cheesecake. Listen, if Emily doesn't bring the cheesecake next time, she is not allowed there.
She's not saying a word.
Good to know.
Good to know. Noted.
I'm just there to bring the cheesecake. Got it.
I mean,
I'm just here for Kira and cheesecake.
I would love to tell you otherwise, but I mean, you're right. You're not wrong.
It's fine. Could be worse.
It's true.
Okay, so be sure to click on the links down below. We're on the social medias. We even got Blue Sky now, and we're on Instagram. We are on Facebook. We are on the Twitter. We're on TikTok until it gets shut down, which we'll see what happens there. Be sure to click all of those links. And if you're listening to the audio podcast, go over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. And if you're on YouTube, check out the audio podcast and subscribe. And most importantly, if you can, please leave a review either on Apple, Audible, or Spotify. Apple's the one that helps us out the most, but we did get an Audible review that was quite nice, so I'm going to go ahead and read that one. This comes from Nicole Panucci, and Nicole says, Gray 17 podcast is back, as Especially the Lies. That's the title. About 6 months ago, my dog died. While grieving, I found the Gray 17 podcast. They were a group of 6 or 7 friends who chose to rewatch a classic 90s TV show about life on a space station, B5, discuss each episode, talk smack, make predictions, and troll each other. It was just what I needed. Though Gray 17 ended in the fall of 2024, several of the hosts decided that they had so much fun, and they want to do it again. But this time, watching the other classic 90s TV show about life on a space station, Deep Space Nine. I've listened to only 2 podcast episodes, because there's only 2 episodes out right now, but already the antics have begun. I can't wait to see the hot takes this group makes about my favorite Trek series and what they think of the tapestry that is DS9. controversial comment, though I love B5, DS9 is a much better show because the characters really come alive. If you're a longtime fan of DS9 or a newbie without a watch group, this is a fun group to spend time with. Thank you, Nicole. I'm very sorry about your puppy, but we really do appreciate that you have come along for the ride, and we're happy that we could have been a little part of the support that you needed. So we're going to go ahead and start talking about Captive Pursuits, the season 1 episode. I am Scott, and with me is
Emily,
Christopher,
Shannon,
Nicole.
I am Jessi.
And I am Prentice.
So, as I mentioned, we're here to talk season 1's Captive Pursuits. Nicole, I believe you have a synopsis for us.
Yes. O'Brien helps an alien from the Gamma Quadrant as hunters descend on the station, searching for their humanoid prey in the most fucked up Hunger Games type show I've ever seen.
I don't know. The Hunger Games were pretty fucked up, and I think this one was pretty tame.
Okay,
compared to that.
true. But I guess I wasn't expecting it. I was like, oh, damn, this is some Hunger Games shit.
There was no child death in this one. Sorry.
No, I'm glad.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and talk to our newbies first who have not watched any episode past this one, and we're going to get their first impressions, and then we'll go to those who have seen the entire series and get their spoiler-free first impressions. Then we'll talk about the episode, and then we'll get some questions and predictions that the newbies may have about what comes next, and kick them out and have a spoiler talk at the end of the episode. So let's do first impressions first, and let's go to Shannon. First impressions.
I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was fun. I will admit that I do listen or watch shows with the subtitles on, which I really like. And the thing that I caught that not everyone would necessarily caught is that Tosk called him O'Brien, like the exclamation O. And it cracked me up every time he said it. It was just like, oh, Brian. And
would you say he gave him the O face?
No.
But not Dutch.
So I thought it was really fun, and I thought it was interesting to learn more about O'Brien and kind of the way he'll bend the rules, but also is a good guy and has a protective nature. And I also thoroughly enjoyed the very beginning part when this curly redheaded alien came in with her rainbow puffy sleeves and her like almost Centauri like from big forehead, and she was just rocking that outfit. And I was like, you know what? She makes me think that Lisa Frank if she was an alien, and I loved it.
Nicole, first impressions.
I actually really liked this episode. I really, really enjoyed the dynamic between O'Brien and Tusk. I really saw a really kind of sweeter side of O'Brien, I guess, or a softer side, because last episode he was kind of irritable and, he seemed kind of gruff or whatever, but it was a really nice insight to learn a little bit more about him. And, off the bat, I thought he was one of my favorite characters, and I kind of fell in love with him a little bit more in this episode, to be honest. So I really, really enjoyed that. And I also really like how Cisco and the rest of the crew kind of like had this dude's back and they didn't even really know him. They just knew that he was being hunted. And Cisco was like, not on my watch. Even offered him asylum. Like, it was just a really good episode, a lot of intrigue. There was one moment, so I really liked Tosk off the bat. There was one moment I was like, ooh, does the shady count start here? Because when he was looking for weapons, I was like, and then I took it away right away when I realized he was just trying to protect himself. But yeah, overall, great episode. I like the Cisco and O'Brien dynamic too, because, it looks like Cisco is pissed and like yelling at him and telling him not to break rank and da. But then at the end, he has that big old shit-eating grin smile on his face. And it just warmed my heart. And I was actually really sad to see Tusk go. I was kind of like, oh no, I want to see the O'Brien Tusk show continue. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. Though I didn't really like the whole hunting people thing. That was kind of fucked up. But great episode.
Christopher.
This took me a few rewatches in order to get myself to enjoy the episode. And I can't really figure out why, but I think it's because there was just a little bit too much O'Brien for my liking. I think they're leaning on him a little heavy, and I get it because he's, from TNG, and so they're trying to get the people to cross over and come watch DS9, so they want to give him a familiar face. But I kind of want to see some other characters right now, and so I think it was just a little bit too O'Brien heavy for me right now. The other things that I have written down here were I Am Tosk just made me think of I Am Group because he kept saying it and it just popped in my head every time he said it. The other thing was the hunters looked like Oompa Loompas and I couldn't not see it. And overall the episode I thought was good, but I don't know, there was just something I really didn't enjoy about it.
Jessi.
Well, I fucking love this shit. just I fucking love this show, and I am so surprised at all of this. But I, for the first time, like was like, oh, I want to watch the next episode, and I was like, shit, there's 7 seasons of this shit, and I'm gonna have to go through it all again. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a really fucking weird concept. Like if you think about, it's kind of similar to like people being like bred for their organs to like supplement cloning a human and using their organs, and then what do you do with that human? Or like fighting dogs where they're like their only purpose is to be bait dogs, which is a terrible concept also. I will say that they have the worst fucking fights I've ever seen in any show ever. They've got remote controllers and they're like pew pew. It's so obnoxious. Like I watched the first one and I was like, well, that was the dumbest thing I've seen. And then the second one was dumb too. He like shoots the guy in the middle, both the other guys fly off. Very strange things happening on Deep Space Nine. But other than that, Quark was quirking. I actually very much enjoy him. He's a weird freak and he seems to be my people. So I think that's all I got.
All right, we'll head over to our folks who have watched the entire show now. Emily, first impressions.
Okay, sorry, I have to write down Jessi's quote. What was that? Quark was quarking?
Yes, he was quarking.
I loved that too. That was a good one.
All right, we now need that on a shirt. Thank you very much for that.
I just say new shirt, Quark be Quarkin.
Quark be Quarkin.
That's fantastic. I do enjoy this episode. I think it brings up a lot of interesting ideas surrounding like cultural differences and what you accept, what you tolerate, and where you draw the line. Because obviously the Federation does not hunt for sport. That's not something they generally are like, woohoo! Or at least Starfleet. So yeah, I do like it. And I do like O'Brien. It shows his creativity and intelligence. And I think actually my favorite part is where Odo's like going to the turbo lift and Sisko's like, you don't have to hurry. So he just like slows down and adjusts his uniform and just nonchalantly walks in like, I get what you're saying. We're good. All right.
I did like Odo's slow walk. That was good.
Prentice, how about yourself?
You know what? I like the episode. It's kind of a mid-tier episode for the season. It's a classic, let's find the loophole Star Trek episode where they get out of not breaking the prime directive, breaking rule, just find a way to get around it. Quark is the man. I find him to be Armin Sherman. I just don't know. I just think he's hilarious. He's devious, but also at the same time, he's helpful. He's somebody you can talk to at a bar about different things. And I like his character. The Ferengis in this show are amazing. They're comic relief, but also they're just interesting takes on capitalism in general. So I like to say that. Now, this episode, I forgot all about it, right? So it put me in the mindset of the Herodians on Voyager. So it made me connect those, although slightly different, but it was still this kind of hunter-prey concept that they seem to take off on Voyager a couple years later. Overall, it was a decent episode. Colm Meaney, like I say, he's a jewel in the franchise. He's a likable character, smart guy, fun guy to be around. And I love how they're going to develop the character going forward. But overall, I like the episode. It was a decent episode. I haven't seen it in about 15 years, but it was good to watch after all these years.
Yeah, this is one of the stronger episodes of the first little chunk of season 1 that was put together before the show started coming out. And part of that is Colm Meaney. This is actually Colm Meaney's favorite episode of season 1 because he gets a lot to chew on with O'Brien. And this is the second episode in a row where we get to do a little bit more O'Brien too. So if you don't like O'Brien, that I can understand, but I enjoy him a lot. He's a curmudgeon and he's just fun. This story is based off a short story back from 1924, which is The Most Dangerous Game, and it was written by Richard Connell. Basically, any movie or adaptation about somebody being hunted, and there's been tons of them, kind of come off of this original story. So it's definitely something that is brought up a lot, but I do love the fact that this is the first time we get aliens coming through the wormhole. It's been several episodes of knowing that wormhole is there, but now we're starting to get some aliens coming through. And yeah, they did kind of look like Oompa Loompas, and with the helmets on, they looked like Lord Helmet from Spaceballs, because those helmets were way too damn big. That being said, Michael Westmore, the makeup artist, and his team got nominated for an Emmy for this episode. So I guess Tosk did well. Let's go ahead and start talking about the episode proper. Who wants to start? Christopher.
So the first thing I wanted to know is what was that contract requiring of the Dobo girl?
Jesus, Christopher, wait till the fucking questions part, because that was one of my questions, you little shit.
You're not, the newbies aren't going to know what this is, but I guarantee Umox was a part of that contract. And you'll know it when you know it.
Not Umox. Oh, no.
I'm waiting for the first Umox episode with bated breath. No one tell the newbies what Umox is. No one.
So I like the idea that this was kind of a first contact going awry without it being like, some sort of like diplomat screwing up. Like it wasn't like a protocol misstep. It was, hey, we're having, you guys are hunting a sentient being and we don't like that. I thought that was an interesting premise in regards to first contact. I guess what also kind of took me out was the fact that they could just communicate right away, right? They're 90,000 light years away. Nobody's had any contact with them before. And it comes through the wormhole and they can already, communicate with him.
Of course they speak English.
Well, Thur, I want to do my comic book guy voice for a minute. It's called the Universal Translator and it operates on the power of plot.
Right, because when you've never had any contact with someone before or another language before, you're instantly going to be able to figure out their language. I don't give a damn how great their computing ability is. It's going to take a little bit of time.
What's really fun is when, and you've watched Enterprise, right? Or at least parts of it. So Hoshi Sato, the communications officer, they didn't have the Universal Translator. So Hoshi just learned languages within 5 minutes of the episode every time. So it's just as dumb.
At least there was an attempt to say, hey, we know that we can't communicate with somebody, so we need a linguistics expert. Instead of just, we can just communicate with someone because of this Universal Translator, even though we've had no contact with them and they're 90,000 light years away.
Any other nitpicks?
Not right now.
They're fucking aliens and you're worried about what language they speak. Like, this is like me and Babylon 5 all over again when I'm trying to logically make sense of everything.
This is what happens when Jessi starts liking shows. She's like, gets angry when
I'm not
somebody
angry.
puts it out.
Hold on, don't make me the angry lesbian today because that is not the vibe I'm going for.
You are a lesbian?
According to whoever from
I know you're angry, so I just assume
I'm not, but I guess I could be. I don't know.
Nicole?
Well, since Christopher brought up communication, I do want to talk about how when Pop got off the ship and O'Brien was like, it's okay, come out, he was very tentative and like afraid and like not afraid, but like apprehensive. He didn't know what to expect. He didn't know if he was in danger. It was very kind of sweet and like naive in a way. And it reminded me of the wormhole. What is this? What is this? What is this? That we like didn't know anything. It kind of reminded me of that. Like he just was like, O'Brien, when he was telling him, you can talk to the computer, you can go here. He just was apprehensive about everything. And then you saw throughout the episode, he started to get a little bit more comfortable when he knew he wasn't like in danger of everything. It was just very endearing because it just kind of made you like him right off the bat.
Shannon.
What was the word that you were saying no one can tell us newbies what it means?
Umox.
It sounds like a medicine that you would take to treat an alien STD.
Yeah. We're just going to wait and you'll all see. Just wait.
And I was just going to throw in that the Hunters gave me more of a Marvin the Martian vibe.
Jessi?
I like Tusk because like he had no personal space whatsoever. And as somebody who can't stand that, him and I would have fought because it would have constantly been like, I need you to step back. I need you out of my face. I need you not so close to me. What the fuck are you doing standing right here? Like it would have been a constant thing. And the fact that he had no sense of humor in the beginning, like you say something to him and he's like, understood. So as somebody who like plays around a lot, I don't really get along with those types of people. But what I found interesting about him was like 17 minutes of sleep is all he needed. Sign me up. I'm killing that right now. Like my extra like 2 hours that I'm currently getting, I would be like super well rested and so productive. The fact that he doesn't eat, and no vices. Okay, sir.
Sign me up.
What's it like to be perfect? I just need to know.
17 minutes of sleep. That's about what I'm getting with a newborn.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll go. Yeah, I have like
Jessi.
Sorry, thank you, Scott. The concept.
You're quite welcome.
The concept of the show really is messing with my head. Like it is super unethical to like breed people to like be hunted. Like that's a very strange concept to me. And like even with Hunger Games, like they're not bred to die. They're like required to participate in said games because of the bourgeoisie or whatever they are. And like, but like these guys are like, it's like an honor to do so. And it's a very weird concept to me. It seems very wrong. So I hope that I piss all the people off with that one.
I don't think anyone's going to be pissed off because you're against slavery and hunting people. So
I mean,
at least I hope not. I mean, the YouTube commenters maybe,
like some people in Argentina and half the country at one point had whatever. I digress.
Drink more of your wine, Nicole.
Exactly.
So as we all know, I correlate everything to music, and I agree with Jessi. I really felt uncomfortable about the concept of hunting people, but a song that I really, really like is called Headhunter by VNV Nation, or no, Sprint 242. Sorry, VNV Nation remixed it. Anyways, there's a song called Headhunter, and it's by this band Front 242. It is like a classic industrial song. People love it, right? It is one of my jams, and it's literally about sending that and hunting the man. So what's fucked up is I'm very against it, but I really fucking love that song. And all I could think about during this whole like sequence of the hunters, in my head that song is playing, and I was like, man, this is a mind fuck right now.
I'm not sure how you top that, Christopher, but go for it.
When they offered Tosk asylum, he says, "Allow me to die with honor," and that to him, it wasn't to stay and not fight and not try to get away and not participate would be a disgrace for him, and just trying to see it in their mindset, no matter how reprehensible we see it as. But and sure, there's things that we, that our culture does that others are like, why would you ever do that? How can you do it that way? Not hunting people, but just I did like seeing it from their point of view, and then they also, you can't violate the Prime Directive, but as soon as it's something that they disagree with, they immediately pass judgment. Cisco says, you can't come here. If you come here into our, they have to make an agreement that they can't go through the wormhole and continue the hunt. So to me, that kind of seemed like a little bit of a violation. But
Shannon?
I was going to say that I was glad that O'Brien let us go, and so he could continue on, because to be like brought in at that point and, be like just a trophy that they caught him wouldn't have been good either. Like that would be shameful. And so, and the fact that you had to respect these traditions that are literally alien to you, it was an interesting road for them to travel. But I was glad that O'Brien kind of helped him in the end so they could continue on. And, I guess I'd like to know if we'll ever see Kosk again. Oh, that's a question. My bad. I'll ask it again later.
Nicole?
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it was really cool how O'Brien kind of like changed the rules and helped him, get away. And it was cool because you saw like a little bit of hope on Tosca's face. Like he was so defeated when he like turned and he hung his head and he went and looked the other way when they were talking about how they were going to take him back and he was going to get scraps and be made. I like, my heart was breaking. And then how he just looked so defeated, like he gave up. And then O'Brien basically gave him hope again and like helped him to continue so he can die with honor. And then at the end, when he was telling O'Brien, die with honor, I think because he doesn't know, I don't want to say doesn't have emotion or doesn't know emotion, but maybe doesn't know how to express it in a way. Like I thought that was kind of his way of thanking him and like, thanks, I care about you, kind of feel like that was kind of like his way of just being so grateful to him. And it was just kind of a endearing moment, even though, he told him die with honor.
Jessi?
I like where he was like, well, they wanted a hunt. The hunt is back on. That's what we did for them. Just thinking about him going back and sitting in the cage and just being like the subject of, people's jeering and just like, I don't know. It sounds terrible. So, as like disobedient as O'Brien was, and I got a kick out of Cisco being like, he was like verbally reprimanding him for doing it, but then was like, I guess that Odo just didn't get there on time. You know what I mean? Like it was cool because everybody seemed like they were on the same page. And the concept of this dude just going back and just being a captive sucked. And so they definitely did. I mean, they did some cool shit and I enjoyed it.
Nicole?
Something Jessi just said made me think of another point I wanted to bring up is how they were all on the same page. I feel like the crew is starting to get its groove and like trust each other and know each other a little bit more and kind of like work together. Obviously everyone has their own strengths and ideas and thoughts, but like it just seemed like from the first episode to now, they're like a cohesive group and they're like kind of all on the same page and they kind of, instinctively and intuitively kind of are more of a unit now. And I thought that was a really cool progression to see.
Prentice?
You know what? I have a question for Chris. I know in the last episode, Chris, you you had a kind of problem with the interaction between the crew. It's supposed to be a quasi-military type organization. And I think you kind of got at it was a little bit lax the last time they had this kind of problem. Did you think it was a little bit improved this time, the interaction at the end with Cisco and O'Brien? We've reprimanded him, or do you think it's still a little bit too loose from your experience being in the military?
Well, I think, I don't think the reprimand was, real. I think it was more, I have to reprimand him. I have to show this, and so I think it was all kind of a play because he being Commander Cisco they knew what O'Brien was doing. They found him out and then they could have stopped it. And O'Brien said as much, but he didn't. So he knew what was going on. He knew the consequences of it. And he knew that Starfleet was going to be upset, right? So he knows he has to put on the face as the station commander and say, hey, bad, you can't do this. I don't think he meant a word of it.
Shannon.
I just wanted to talk again about Odo and how it still kind of creeps me out that he turns into like inanimate objects. And he was just like, hey, I'm just like a sack in the background. And then he was there and it's cool, but I'm just not used to it. And then I'd also like to talk about the fact that Kosk, how could he turn invisible? Like he was messing with them. There was that whole like invisibility thing. And then I don't know. I thought that was kind of cool and maybe we could talk about it.
Yeah. So a couple things that you've all thrown out. Shannon, to answer your question, he had a portable cloaking device. Cloaking device is something in Star Trek, some places where they can basically operate it and they are basically invisible. It's not like stealth where you can still see it. It's actually makes the person or thing invisible completely. So he has that. Okay. Christopher, you brought up the Prime Directive, and for our newbies, I know you've watched other Star Trek, but some folks have not. So I'd like to get into that Prime Directive a little bit. And this is the first time DS9 has dealt with it. Won't be the last because it's a Star Trek thing. But for those who don't know what the Prime Directive is, it is a Federation directive. So not the other aliens don't have to follow it unless they're a part of the Federation. So like Klingons don't have to follow it and Cardassians and so forth and so on. But the Prime Directive basically says that you are not to interfere in another people's culture, civilization, what have you. And then more specifically, if that culture or civilization does not have faster than light travel, then you can't even interact with them at all. Obviously, Tosk had faster than light travel, so that didn't count. But the Prime Directive still factored in because you're not supposed to interfere with individual cultures. As was already discussed, they definitely found some loopholes, which is what Star Trek does sometimes. But I'm interested to know what maybe the newbies think about that rule and if it came into play the right way in that conversation. So Jessi, what do you got?
Maybe. I enjoyed how Cisco was like, cool, all these people are waiting for us to tell them how the first interaction with the new species from the wormhole went, and you kicked their asses. Like, good job. Is regarding the like not interfering with them as a race, I feel like it's just pretty on par. Like, you shouldn't mess with different races and their rules. They make their own rules. They don't abide by yours, so your rules don't apply. Oh, let's piss them off early. I like to like equate that the super far right Christians that want to make all their, laws regarding my body based on their God, but they don't ask me if I believe in their God or not. So like, your God's rules don't really apply to me if I don't believe in your God. That's kind of how this is. So I'm gonna stop before I get voted off the island.
Jessi, you know that your uterus is not yours. Come on.
I know. I shouldn't even have an opinion, really. I should be in the kitchen right now.
You should be, as all women
Sure,
should be.
yeah.
Nicole, speaking of women, what do you got? How's your uterus?
It's doing great. Thanks for asking. It's still there. Basically, Cisco kind of had the stance of, you're not doing this on my watch, even though it was kind of against their Prime Directive or whatever. So do I think they followed it? No. Do I disagree? No. And I think they just found creative ways to go around it, which we've all done that. We've all found creative ways to bend the rules at times in some point in our lives. It didn't really bother me at all. I was just like, hell yeah, like do that. Like they found a way way to just kind of do the right thing in a way.
Christopher.
I'm thinking of it as it's kind of like an isolationist mindset. That's their culture, that's their issues. We aren't gonna interfere. We're gonna let them be their, do their thing. And it makes me think of if we were contacted in the 1930s and with everything, would you not interfere? Right? We had that here, that same question. Would you not interfere if you saw genocide going on? Right? So is it this hard rule that you just don't interfere, or is it malleable? Is it breakable? I guess is my question.
Shannon.
Oh, I am a newbie to this show, but I at least know what the Prime Directive is just because of just like general history with some of the original Star Trek. But have they actually expressed it in this show yet? Or is it just they assume everyone knows like that because it's Federation? Like I can't remember if they've actually like come out and said it.
This is the first time they've talked about it.
Okay. It did remind me though of one of my favorite Brian quotes from this episode when he said, "Rules are rules until they are wrong."
Prentice?
The Prime Directive was always a very enlightened philosophy, I think, Star Trek presented about the way we should think about cultures, given our history of interference in other people's cultures and history. And I think they handle it well for the most part. That's why I like these episodes. They present this kind of ethical dilemma, and they present something like a great loophole to get around it. But this is what Star Trek does well. It kind of presents these ethical conundrums, these issues, and makes you think about it. I appreciate this franchise for that because you don't get a lot of franchises that are out there that really gives you something to chew on when it comes to thinking outside the box, thinking about real world issues, but in different contexts, and struggling with these moral dilemmas. So I appreciate those kind of conversations. But I think with the Prime Directive in general, Star Trek, sometimes it's a hard rule that's really malleable in many ways, and they work around it. But when they explain it, I think Enterprise does a good job, that show, explaining why they had enacted in the first place, given how many times they botched up the first contact with different aliens, cultures, and peoples when humanity first started going to the stars. So I like this discussion. I thought it was handled well in the show, and you'll get to see more of that, I think, down the line as the season progresses in a little bit more interesting ways. But Chris, I understand what you're saying about what if we took that same mindset back in the 30s. And the only thing I can think of when I think about that is that was all human beings, right? So that's all culture. We understand right and wrong. We have a certain commonality amongst humanity. But when you start getting other cultures and races and different creatures, their kind of background, what is human rights in that context? How can we judge other cultures and whether or not they're right and wrong and what they do? I mean, you want to say it's a universal ethical standard. I just don't know. But I'm glad you asked that question because that's often what we get at in some of these ethical dilemmas within Star Trek.
And this is also why Michael Piller, who is the showrunner at this point and the creator of the show, really enjoyed this episode because it is fundamentally Star Trek, because it deals with kind of this one-off, culturally significant discussion. And that is definitely Trek in a nutshell. Jessi.
So thinking about it along those lines, rules are rules until they're wrong, right? Is that what we said? Rules are rules until they're wrong. Who decides they're wrong? Because like right now, there's genocide going on, and one side thinks that they're right, even after killing tens of thousands of innocent women and children. Who decides they're wrong? I like Chris's, like, my brain is gonna explode right now because I didn't go down this deep of a track, but like, he's not wrong. Like, who are we to decide that this is wrong for them hunting Tusk? Because by our standards, it's wrong, right? Like by our standards, you don't hunt people. Like, I feel like that seems very, very like it's just normal common knowledge, but these guys are bred for specifically this, and who are we to tell them that they're wrong? But in this episode, I think like we talked about, they found the loophole. They didn't tell them they were wrong. They didn't tell them they couldn't do it anymore, but they found their own way to help this guy to continue on to be a human, whether he's being hunted or not. They gave him basically a second chance at dignity. So that's, I mean, like, that you get into like, yes, we want to think that common human rights are a universal standard, but clearly they're not, because we watch it on TV every single day, where part of the world believes that one country is correct while they're murdering lots and lots and lots.
You are just racking up the wonderful comments on the YouTube.
But like, think about it, like they're
they're
committing like war crimes at this point, like by like bombing hospitals, and they think they're right. So
Christopher got a colonialization thing last week, so it's fine.
We're doing great.
We're doing great. Sorry. Emily?
So I understand the point being made. My question is, are they committing genocide? Because the point of genocide is eradication. They're not trying to eradicate Tosk.
No, sorry.
They were specifically created, designed, however they did it. If they were like, I don't like the term lower species, and they were intentionally bred to have a certain trajectory. But there's nothing here to indicate they want to eradicate them. They seem to want to keep them and keep generations going to continue this practice. So while I find it bizarre and rather abhorrent, the overall purpose of it is not comparable to me.
Yeah, I kind of see it as I used to do the Boy Scout fishing derby in my hometown. And before the fishing derby, they would restock the lake. So everyone got a fish. It's kind of the same idea.
Everybody gets a prize.
Or a tusk.
Right, but fish aren't sentient.
I never said, I wasn't trying to make the full correlation.
Fish have feelings,
I'm just saying the tusks are created for the hunt. I'm not saying it's legitimate. I'm not saying it's right. In fact, I think it's abhorrent. I'm just making the analogy.
First of all, I love that word, abhorrent.
Abhorrent.
But so I think that maybe I stepped into my weird little political views a little too much here, but I don't believe that. Okay, so me comparing this episode to the genocide that's going on kind of has nothing to do with genocide. I was more making the point that there are people who are currently, in our views, committing genocide, but they think they're right. So, and then I mean, you can apply it to this same thing. They're doing something abhorrent, which is, again, I love that word. But they think it's completely normal. They don't have any problems with it at all. So yes, I don't want to be, I don't want to be that person that's oh, you're totally fucking wrong. I probably am most of the time. So welcome to my life. But yeah, with the genocide, it's just definitely placing it into our current standards and what we see going on versus what the show is discussing in the 90s, which still creeps me out that we can even still compare.
I am a failed high school history teacher, but also I taught one sociology class, and I loved talking situational ethics and watching the little minds explode. That was fun. Is it a right to kill? Oh no. Is it right to kill in war? Boom.
Okay then, yes.
Situational ethics. So much fun.
So I'm not gonna tell you what my major was because we'll stay with the snake milker thing.
I'm already saying, was it snake milking?
It was snake milking 101. I learned how to do it underwater. But my minor was sociology, and in my master's program, I took a lot of sociology classes. And it wasn't until I started to take sociology classes that I realized that, oh God, Prentice, don't fucking shoot me when I say this, that racism actually still exists. Because you don't know what you don't know, right? And so when they talk about white privilege and you're like, nah, I grew up poor. Okay, but that's not what we're talking about. And so it was those sociology classes that really started to bring it up to the forefront and be listen, your little world is perfect. And I know that you think everything's great and sunshine and rainbows, but here's how it actually is for a lot of other people in this world. So I highly suggest that everybody out there take sociology classes if you get the chance. It will fuck up your whole entire world.
I actually minored in philosophy, and it was because I really loved the ethics class, and I had taken just so many in that because I was just found it interesting, logic and philosophy, that they're if you just take 3 more classes, it could be your minor.
Yeah,
so
I love that. I'll take them.
I think this is why a lot of us are enjoying this show, is because it's a mirror to humanity, right? And so it's making us think about these ethical questions. It's making us think, what would I do in this situation? Is it ever okay, to let people, hunt for sport, or what would you do in these sort of situations? And I think that's what brings us. I think that's why at least why I'm enjoying.
Go ahead and
show.
speak for all of us, Chris. It's fine.
Men like to talk for women.
I need to start being nicer to Christopher because I feel like I do nothing but yell at him because I haven't been able to do this for a very long time.
I actually like the fact that Christopher's here because you're not yelling at me now. You're yelling at him.
It's early, Scott. It's early. We're on episode 6. You've got 7 more seasons left.
There's 100 176 episodes. Nicole!
I was going to say, I definitely agree with Christopher because, a lot of the time when we watch shows on TV, a lot of it's either mindless or things that we've watched before, or maybe an episode we've already seen, or you kind of get the plot right off the bat. But this is definitely something that makes you think a little bit more. And I think that it is probably more interesting because it is intriguing and it's interesting, but also it's crazy to me how like Babylon 5 and DS9 like are talking about topics that are still topical today and like relevant and relatable, and it was 30 years ago. Like it just blows my mind. So every episode that we watch and as we get deeper into these discussions, I always leave just thinking and thinking and thinking, and it really gets the gears going, and I think that's definitely why it's probably so enjoyable, is because the shows challenge you a little bit more than other things that we may consume, and I don't know about you guys, but I tend to rewatch shows I've seen. A lot of it's more background noise or comfort shows, but like, I've watched Friends 150,000 times. I've watched West Wing over and over again. Like there's shows that I watch over and over again that are great, but in a way it's like this, I think being a newbie, being new to sci-fi and just all of it, it really makes me think in a way that I didn't expect. And I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, this is fundamental to if you haven't seen Star Trek, really good Star Trek, back even from the 60s, is all about talking about issues that we're facing now, but doing it in a way that makes it allegorical to something else. And really, Trek was subversive in the 60s specifically because the censors couldn't allow a lot of conversations about race, about society, about ethics, and Trek just was able to do it because it's all aliens, and so there you go.
Okay, when it's not us.
Exactly. Nicole.
Well, and Scott, to kind of go off what you said, I think, and I don't really know another way to word it, but like, I feel like the show makes those topics more digestible in a way, because it is aliens and it's sci-fi and it's fictional, but also like the way that it's portrayed, the way that they do it, it kind of is more digestible and understandable. It makes you think more than watching the fucking news or something like that. You know what I mean? A lot of the time, I can't even watch it half the time. You know what I mean? But something like this takes these really important topics that are still important today, but it makes it more consumable and digestible and makes you think about it and dissect it a little bit more than other ways that you consume this information.
Anybody else got anything to add about the episode?
Can we talk about Quark?
Love to. Let's talk about
He's
Quark.
a freaky motherfucker.
He's your barkeep.
He runs a close second to Monkey Man Bartender, by the way.
I will say, real quick, we had a sighting of Morn in this episode. Newbies, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but we did have a Morn sighting. You will grow to love Morn. Just wait. Go ahead, Jess.
So, okay, so we need to discuss Holosuite because I don't know what the fuck these are, and I need to know.
They're brothels that can give you holographic fun. Remember the guy who was getting the massage a few episodes ago? That was a holosuite. He didn't get his happy ending unless he wanted a knife.
So wait, it's a holographic whorehouse?
It can be.
That's the joke, is Next Generation was the first Star Trek to have holodecks. And for them, it was like, let's go to the holodeck and do Shakespeare, or let's go to the holodeck and do Robin Hood, and let's play around with the holodeck. And DS9's like, let's make it a hooker dome. Okay.
Didn't Babylon 5 did that too, though? Didn't they have we had a whole episode about that?
It was a movie about that.
Oh, is it the fucking shitty movies that we had to watch?
It was River of Souls.
God, I'm trying to.
Well, I mean, if you wanted to go in the Hollow Suite and pretend you were on top of Mount Everest or whatever, you could do that too. It's just that most people go in there to do nasty things.
It depends. I mean, we will have characters in the show that go and reenact old battles because that's what they like to do. Okay. I'm not going to say which characters because you'll find out later. But so they'll go in there and we're going to reenact the Alamo this time, and we're going to be Davy Crockett. So that happens. But also, if you want a happy ending, Quark's got your back.
Something new that I can fight with my husband about. That sounds fun. Okay, you're cheating on me, but not really, but kind of. That's fun. Go ahead, Christopher. Please enlighten us.
So Quark has been my favorite, and he was the favorite part of this episode when his objection to being called barkeep, I thought was hilarious, and he was trying to be everybody's therapist. And but also, like, I don't think he was really wanting to solve anybody's problems. I think he just wanted the gossip. You know, it's, as my wife would say, he just wants the chisme. And I thought it was funny. I think he's hilarious.
Oh, we're married to similar, culturally similar people.
Jessi, what else you got? Tell us more about your husband going to holosuites.
No, he's not allowed in the holosuites. If you can't be trusted to behave, you're not allowed to go there. I'm just kidding. He probably would be behave. He'd probably be playing like old school retro fucking video games or some bullshit. Okay, so the thing that got me about Quirk this whole episode, and this is because I'm sorry, I'm white and I can't help it. Your face gets very pink when you're aggravated. Okay, fucker. I'm white. I can't help it. My face is red. That's what happens. And I've heard that my whole life, and I watched it and I don't know what I was doing, but I wasn't looking at the TV. And when they said it, I was like, oh, the fuck, I got to deal with this on this fucking show too. So he was just like, why is your face so red? And he's like, why do you keep aggravating me? I loved that whole interaction between the two. Prentice is laughing at me still.
That comment made me laugh too, because I get very red a lot, and it doesn't even necessarily, I just get red. And when he said that, I was like, you son of a bitch.
Right.
Like,
I did the same thing.
What's it like to be tan, motherfucker? Like, you know, right. I was like, leave my pasty translucent ass alone.
Yeah.
My skin tone is pink.
I say that to my husband all the time. I'm like, I'm sorry, we can't all be this beautiful caramel color, you fucker. Like, you drive your car and you get tan. Piss off.
There seems to be a need for some therapy between you and your husband. You keep coming back to it.
Did you just figure that together fucking 11 years?
I'm just calling it out that you keep gravitating towards the husband on this.
Well, because I have some animosity towards his beautiful skin color.
Apparently he's not allowed to cheat with holodecks.
Like, would you let your, like, okay, let's start this conversation. You wouldn't give a shit if your wife walked in and like...
As long as I don't get the bill, knock yourself out.
I would literally cut my man if he even fucking thought about it.
And like, listen, I don't know if I would or not. Like,
I'd be like, you go have your holosuite time. I'll go have my holosuite time. We can get it or not.
And hopefully none of us gets knifed in the back.
I'd rather you do it without bringing like actual STDs home. We have some issues. I don't know. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. So the word of the day is, can you let your husband cheat on you in the holosuite and enjoy it?
I just love the fact that we had already a conversation about how Star Trek gets into the meaty subjects that a lot of TV doesn't. And then we ask, can you get real STDs from the holosuite?
Nobody asked if you could get real. I don't know, unless, I mean, it is the future, so maybe you could, but like, no, thank you.
If you'd like to give us money, go to the Patreon, because shit.
Well, I know the name of the medication you take for those STDs. You said it earlier in the episode.
I am looking forward to the day when Jessi learns what Umox is. No Googling.
I don't Google. I'm not that person.
Nicole, you're that person.
So what we've learned today is that Jessi and I are possessive over our men. And if you look at them, come near them, even touch them, we will fucking cut you.
No. Okay, hold on though.
I am, I guess.
You can have him if you pay my bills. We always had this. We always had this rule that, listen, you can have a girlfriend, but she has to be over 70 and she has to be rich enough, like old money rich enough to pay my bills, my student loans, and a little extra for my pockets.
Okay, so let's do some loopholes here, because we did the loopholes with the Prime Directive. Somebody over 70. That includes Dax, right?
Hell yeah. You want to bring Dax home? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Listen, I've wanted this for years about the holosuites. All that stuff is going upstairs in the holosuite. I just hope to God that room is able to clean itself by itself, because I would hate to be one of the staff members of court that have to go in there after all that crazy stuff goes down. That is disgusting.
That was another part of the contract that she signed. I have to go clean up the holosuite.
I just hope they're not using Odo's bucket.
No.
We haven't even seen Odo's bucket yet.
Done. Do we get to see Odo's bucket?
We do.
I think that should be the end of it right there. There's no coming back from that one.
Again, we had the one side of the spectrum with Trek being all about talking about things that are important to culture, and then using Odo's bucket to clean up the holosuite.
Ew.
God, I love this show. Okay.
No more, please.
Anyone else have anything they want to add before we go into questions, predictions?
We've reached that point where if the next person that raises their hand in class asks another fucking question, I'm going to punch them straight in the throat. Can we?
My brain's too broken to continue.
Okay, so let's go to our newbies who have not watched past this episode and see if they have any lingering questions or predictions of what may happen next. And again, this isn't really a huge thing since we're not really in serialization mode yet, but as we get deeper in the DS9, we'll definitely have some more predictions. But if you have any now, that's great. Let's go to Jessi. Questions, predictions.
Number one, if Christopher would have waited his fucking turn, what was in the employment contract from Quark? Number two, do we ever get to see a Hollow Suite?
We did.
Okay, well, I missed it. Number three, what race was Tosk? Like, what race? I know that Tosk was Tosk, but like, what were the other not Tosk?
He was Tosk.
Yeah, but what are the other ones?
The Tosk chasers.
The Tosk chasers. Deal. And then my
you mean with the hunters?
Yeah.
What race were they? Okay. They were called the hunters.
Right, because that's what we called them. But what were like? What's their like? Whatever. I think I'm just thinking too much.
The big helmet dudes.
And then the Oompa Loompas, as somebody would call. Yes. And then my prediction was Quark is a freaky motherfucker, and he's just gonna get weirder.
I agree. Christopher, how about you?
Well, I believe we're going to see more conflict coming from the Gamma Quadrant, and that one of the species that comes from the Gamma Quadrant is going to battle the Cardassians because they both want a share of the territory.
Cool. Nicole?
I got nothing.
I got nothing. Shannon?
Well, I did ask it earlier, but I had the question of, will we ever see him again? Toss, or however you say his name. And then what is the weirdest thing that Odo turns into?
Funny story.
We gotta keep track for the
Here's
whole
the thing.
episode.
Well, here's the thing. We will answer that question in the spoiler section because there is something that Odo turns into that is, in my opinion, the oddest thing that he does, but I'm not going to say it because it happens quite a bit down the road.
So somebody in the Discord called it through the wormhole. I kind of like that.
Through the wormhole? Okay, we can do that. I've been toying with that or visiting the prophets or whatever, but yeah, through the wormhole works. And if you want to be on the Discord, join our Patreon at any level and you can get access to the Discord. And there's also a spoiler section that Nicole jumped into immediately when she joined the Discord.
No, everyone got put in there automatically.
Well, it doesn't mean you have to click on it.
Well, I muted it, so I won't see it anymore. But
Good
I
job.
was just wondering if there was a way to remove us, so
like,
it wasn't tempting.
Just because your stove has a flame doesn't mean you need to light your fucking house on fire.
Well,
It's just it's got a
muted
flame.
it,
Or
okay?
it
And then go
does.
back in. I was just making a point, smart ass.
What other purpose do you have for the oven than to light your house on fire?
Is this more about your husband?
I don't know. Should it be? Is there something I don't know?
I don't know. That's how he gets the tan.
Can I have 5 seconds to address the Nicole that left the review for us?
Yes, please.
Miss Nicole, thank you so much for the kind things that you said about our show. And from one person to another who lost their beloved pup actually a year ago yesterday. I feel your pain and it does get better, but I think at about month 6 it still sucked the worst.
Oh my God, that was a year ago now?
Yeah, it was January 10th, a year ago, 2 days ago.
My goodness.
Yeah. So, I mean, as somebody who is, their dogs are her children, probably one of the worst grieving times of my adult life. And I didn't expect it because, like, you lose a dog and it's a dog, and I've lost dogs before, but like nothing sucks more than like your first adopted dog as an adult. Like, it really fucking sucked. So I feel your pain and hang in there. There is another dog out there at some point in your life that will absolutely fill not the hole, but make it a little bit easier to deal with. Mine's name is Teddy, and he's a fucking terrorist. So
we love Ted.
He's a great.
Here. Well, we'll go ahead and in the newbie part there, and we'll go through the wormhole in a moment for our spoiler section. Yeah, okay. Until we meet again, be sure to like, subscribe, follow, click all the links down below. And if you're listening on YouTube, check out our audio podcast. If you're listening to the audio podcast, check out our YouTube. Make sure that even if you're not a YouTube watcher, that you subscribe and click that notify button, because we will start doing some live shows here as we get a little deeper in there, and you want to make sure that you're a part of that. And finally, make sure that you leave a review either on Apple, Audible, or Spotify. That really does help the show grow. We'll be back next week to talk Q-less, and I have been Scott, and with me has been
Emily,
Christopher,
Shannon,
Nicole,
Jessi,
Prentice, and I did not have mute on this time. Okay, I'm doing better.
Good job.
Yeah, good job.
I'm proud of you.
I want you all to die with dignity.
you know none of us well, right? Well, maybe Prentice. I don't know him well enough to make that judgment call for him, but the rest of us isn't happening.
My death is going to
It'll be fucking embarrassing.
Right.
Until we come back to talk Q-less, die with honor. But please don't do it between now and next week. That would suck.
No, please don't die at all. But if you're going to do it, die with honor.
Okay. Newbies, be gone.
Bye.
Poodles, poodles.
I would like the vote to make Emily a newbie because I really just don't like it and I can't get used to it.
Thank you for listening to Especially the Lies, a Deep Space Nine podcast. You can find all the places to listen to and watch this podcast by searching for Especially the Lies on your podcast app or on YouTube. We want to hear from you, so join the conversation at Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review where you are listening to or watching this podcast. Especially the Lies is not affiliated with, and the podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by Paramount or any other owners of the Star Trek copyright. All clips included in this podcast are the intellectual property of the respective copyright holders. They are included here for purposes of review, and no infringement is intended.
Why have you brought me here? Show yourselves. What do you want?
The Cisco has returned to us.
He arrives with questions.
There are always questions.
Welcome back to Beyond the Wormhole. I guess that's the title now. Thanks, Discord. We are here to talk spoilers. So if you have not watched past Captive Pursuit or don't remember what happens, feel free to leave now. If not, let's get talking about it. Emily, let's chat about our newbies' questions and predictions.
All right. Let's start with Jessi. She asked what was in the employment contract, which is actually a really good question because that comes up later because Rom is a good union man. So it will be fun to watch if they remember this conversation about the contract. Yeah, because that started something similar with Lita. If I'm remembering correctly, it's actually been like a year since my last rewatch.
No, you're right. It was Lita is involved in it too because of the whole unionization, and Quark's contract absolutely includes providing sexual favors to Quark.
Yeah, and she was angry about that as well, if I remember correctly. And then Rom became a good union man.
That was in season 7, right? I think that was the last season they got into that contract.
Yeah, it's definitely later in the show for sure. Definitely. I don't remember what episode it is, but it's deep into the show.
Yeah. I do appreciate her prediction about Quark will get weirder.
Yes.
Because yes.
Just wait until he dresses in drag. That's the fun one.
That's such a good episode.
That is one of the most hated episodes in the fandom.
Man, people just, okay, as someone who loved the Letters from Avalon episode of B5, maybe that's, maybe I'm damaged, but.
Next week, we're going to have one that is also fairly hated, and that's Q-less. So let's see what happens there.
Yeah. For his prediction was seeing more conflict from the Gamma Quadrant, and damn, is he right.
He definitely pulled a Nicole from our old show. Something's gonna happen. That's my prediction.
And he specified fighting with Cardassians over control of the wormhole, which...
Well, and I have been very, very careful to point out that this is the first alien we have met from the Gamma Quadrant. I'm lying because the first alien we've met from the Gamma Quadrant is Odo, but they don't know that yet.
Right. Yeah. Cole didn't have anything. Shannon wants to know if we'll see Tosk again. I don't recall him ever coming back.
No, he doesn't come back. No, he's a one-off.
And the weirdest thing Odo turns into.
My vote, and what I was referring to, is when he has sex with Kira and he turns into mist.
Yeah.
Hold on. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, I was like, man.
He turns into a cloud and they consummate.
He turns into pleasure mist. That's what
Pleasure mist.
Pleasure
Yeah, I want some more details on that.
The phantasm orgasm. That's what they were going for. I'm sorry. I said
Okay, that needs to be on a shirt now. Phantasm orgasm. Thank you for that one.
Go ahead and copyright that. It's definitely something that came to mind. As soon as you said, I was like, yeah, when Odo had sex with Kira, that was an interesting moment because all of a sudden he's like, I will show you fantastic ways to feel good and show you how much I love you. And she turns into a wonderful miss and she is in. I'm like, okay, this is next level. I wish I could do that trick as well, right? But,
yeah. I thought in this one, since we're talking about his transformations, is that he was a painting on a wall because later, once he meets his own people, whatever her name is, I never like her. I don't know if she even has a name, but the bitch, Changeling. And she like tells him to explore more things and is shape-shifting. I'm looking at that, I'm like, that seems pretty fucking technical to be a painting on a wall, but okay.
Yeah, he also starts putting furniture in his room just to turn into the furniture. So
yeah, sorry about that.
The one thing I wanted to bring up is, since we were talking about the Gamma Quadrant, this, we don't know it yet, and the writers didn't know it yet either because they hadn't put together what the Jem'Hadar would be. They haven't even really thought about the Jem'Hadar yet in the show. But Tosk absolutely has a lot of connections to the Jem'Hadar. Example, I mean, Nicole brought up, or maybe it was Shannon brought up, the personal cloaking device, and that was absolutely, it's used by the Jem'Hadar. And in fact, when they start working on the Jem'Hadar, the showrunners and writers will say, make sure the cloaking device looks just like it did with Tosk, because it's the same technology. The other thing is Tosk is bread, and the Jem'Hadar are bread. And I think it was Robert Hewitt Wolf, I believe, a writer on the show, that said in his assumption that the same organization that bred the Tosks bred the Jem'Hadar as well.
Okay.
You know what? I want to lift up the fact Star Trek in the beginning, or at least just on the beginning, the alien ships are always a reuse of ships we've seen in the past, especially the one we saw in this episode that was from the episode of TNG back in, I forgot the name of the episode, the one with the little kind of globe, the snow globe, as it was docking into Deep Space Nine. They were kind of lazy about designing these alien ships. It was kind of like the standard triangle or kind of boxy ship they had. They were not really creative with that.
Yeah, I'm not going to defend it because you're right. They definitely copied and pasted a lot of stuff. But I will say behind the scenes, this show initially was very, very expensive. They built the promenade full scale on the set. So when they did stuff like that, they had to go cheap other places. I mean, they'll make up for it during the Dominion War when we have massive fleets going toe-to-toe. But yeah, you're right. They're absolutely doing hand-me-downs from TNG. And in fact, I think the other ship was a Vulcan ship. So it's definitely hand-me-downs as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys. Well, we'll go ahead and end it there. I'm interested to see how the newbies handle Q-less. I know Christopher has watched TNG, so he'll know Q. And I think Q is a well enough known character where I think these guys will know who he is, but will he know they know any other backstory? It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, it'll just be interesting to have that conversation with people who just randomly have Q show up for no reason in an episode.
Yeah, with that in context, this one, I predict that one will be a little more difficult for them because they don't have all the background episodes and how much of a dick Q is.
It is my favorite meme, though. Q shows up to Picard, Picard quotes Shakespeare, and Q will never leave him alone. Q shows up to Cisco, Cisco punches him in the face, Q is never seen again.
Didn't we all want to do that, though? Just like punch him right in the face?
Oh, well, on that note, we'll talk about that next week. Again, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, click all the links, do all the buttons, and we will be joining you again. And if you want to talk spoilers with us, head over to our Discord, which is connected to our Patreon, and you can join us in a spoiler conversation over there too. In our other social medias, we're spoiler free because the newbies do look over there. So please, please, please keep it spoiler free over there. So until next week, I've been Scott, and with me has been
Emily.
Prentice.
And we will be back next week, and we may actually still have a Mike or a Blake. They've been gone for a few weeks, but we may have them back. Thanks, everybody, and die with honor.
Hey, barkeep. Don't call me barkeep. I'm not a barkeep. I'm your host, the proprietor, a sympathetic ear to the wretched souls that pass through these portals.
And a man who will exploit any vice you may have. 2 synth ales, barkeep.
I am sorry. I have no vices for you to exploit.